Um,
Oh.
Are you going to kick it off?
Mike, do you want to get started, or?
yeah, I'm ready. Jim wants to kick things off.
Okay, I'll kick things off. I just want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Today is, I think it's an exciting topic to talk about. My name is Jim Lockery. I'm from Custom Computer Specialists. We've been around for 40 plus years. We specialize in data center, collaboration, supplement staffing, and security, both IT and physical. We also have Mike Fulton, who is a VP of Product Strategy from Barracuda Networks, that's kind of going to review what is crypto mining, how to protect yourself against crypto mining. It is the latest thing that we've been finding or seeing in articles of attacking school environments particularly. Mike, do you want to just jump in on that?
Yeah, will do. Thanks, Jim, for the intro. Really excited to be here with all of you this morning, and excited to kind of speak on this topic because I think Jim hit the nail on the head. This is an emerging threat, and we are seeing it make its way into schools in a big way. So it's something we wanted to do some education on. So by way of agenda, we covered the intros. I'm going to talk a little bit about crypto mining and some definitions and the evolution in terms of how we got here, what it is, why it's so important, some kind of recent high-profile incidents, and why it's so complex. We'll look at a cryptojack, which is a variation on crypto mining. I'll kind of explain the difference between the two. But in terms of kind of getting infected or essentially crypto mining making its way into your school, and then probably most important, what you can do to protect yourself. We'll of course try to give you some time back in your day, but we'll leave time at the end for some Q&A to make sure we answer any questions that anybody might have. So thanks again for joining. Let's dig right in. So thought I'd start with the basics in terms of what crypto mining is. I mean, I think most people probably know, but essentially with a lot of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, the way that new currency is generated is by essentially using excess computing power to mine new currency. So what that means is it's using virtually any kind of computer, could be a desktop, could be a server, to generate new Bitcoin or new Litecoin or new Ethereum or really any cryptocurrency. So pretty much anybody can do this with any computing environment. In the early days, you could make a lot of money doing this. So you could kind of get some really powerful computers, some rigs. Some people used cloud services, and you generate a lot of currency. You could kind of take it and do what you wanted with it. These days, it's not as profitable as it used to be because more and more people are doing it, and computing costs and power costs make it not worth it all the time for people to mine on their own, which has given the rise to cryptojacking, which is slightly different. The big difference is that you're now crypto mining on somebody else's dime. And what I mean by that is, like, you might have taken control of somebody's computer, or you might be using somebody else's computer, somebody who's paying the power bill for you, and using those computing environments to crypto mine. And generally, you're doing it without the knowledge of the person because you're costing them a whole lot of power consumption and electric bills. Then your profitability problem obviously is solved because it's pure profit if somebody else is paying the bills. So you still do see some crypto mining, you still see some cryptojacking in a much bigger way going on, but generally it's really kind of two flavors of the same type of thing. And the point is that for schools, both can be problematic. So if you kind of think about crypto mining, you might have people using shared computing resources in a lab or using a work computer to crypto mine, where obviously they don't have to worry about power consumption and other things. And then cryptojacking can really affect anybody, but you might have a malicious insider or somebody from the outside infect one of your machines, again a server, it could be a desktop, and install some malware that runs in the background and does this mining without you knowing about it until you kind of see your increased power bills and realize that something's going on. It slows down computers and just can be really annoying and a bit of a nuisance. So those are some basic definitions. We'll kind of talk about these two flavors as we go, but again, both can be problematic, whether it's kind of surreptitious cryptojacking or more straightforward kind of crypto mining. And if you kind of look at the way things have evolved, crypto mining and cryptojacking is really an evolution of ransomware, where ransomware was kind of really, really popular a few years ago. It's still a problem, but if you kind of look at ransomware, it's very obvious when you have a problem. It's super disruptive. You kind of get a message on the screen, you're being held for hostage, send us Bitcoin. At least you know about it. It's a huge disruption and annoying, but you know what's going on. The challenge with cryptojacking is that most of the time you don't know what's going on. It's a lot harder to detect. And this is what makes it really effective for the bad guys, is that they'll install malware on a lot of different machines. It'll slow the machines down because they're working in the background, but they design the malware to not be detected. So you might not even know you have a problem until you start seeing weird things happening. You see kind of your machines slowed down. You see maybe other malware popping up and other things happening. So it's really, really an issue. And, as I said, we're seeing this affecting schools now in a big way. There's some stories from the news here, in universities, but also down in K-12 as well. Whether mining is going on with people's knowledge or whether machines are kind of infected or being co-opted. So, it can be a big problem, and at best it's a nuisance that ties up your resources and kind of reduces the stability and availability of your computers for your students and staff. And at worst, it can cause really serious problems and potentially create some liability. So it's evolved into a serious issue, and really kind of at the the root of this is, as I said, the evolution of ransomware. So these are some stats on kind of the explosion in the different ways that people are kind of exploiting generating cryptocurrency. And you can see here, kind of ransomware was the flavor of the week, kind of earlier in the 2010 plus decade, and it's really kind of exploded. In the past 2 or 3 years, the bad guys have shifted their tactics towards different variants of cryptojacking and crypto mining instead of just pure ransomware, because as I said, it's easier to fly under the radar, it's harder to detect, and they can ultimately extract more currency out of your valuable computing resources. So why have people shifted to cryptojacking from kind of traditional ransomware? There's a few reasons. So there's some problems with ransomware that's caused people to move towards cryptojacking. Number one is kind of this, what I call the honor amongst thieves concept, that in order to be successful with ransomware, the people who get ransomed need to trust you as a bad guy, which kind of creates a problem because you are a criminal, and it's difficult to trust criminals. But you have to trust that when somebody locks up your systems, that if you pay the ransom, you're really going to get your files back. They're really going to get unlocked. And that your payments aren't temporary, that it's a one-time thing and you get your stuff back. And the bad guys, the people who are committing these ransomware attacks, found that trust eroded over time, and it became more and more difficult for people to actually trust them. So the victims became warier, they started protecting themselves better, they started restoring from backup when they got ransomed, and that really caused the adversary to look for better, more stealthy ways to get Bitcoin, which is why they turned to cryptojacking. And it's really just better business for the bad guys. So it's harder to detect, easier to collect, and it's more direct. Basically, I infect your school's computer lab. They can now generate Bitcoin for me, and it goes directly into my Bitcoin wallet. I don't have to, kind of put a big blinky ransomware screen and then hope that you pay and trust me, and then I get my currency at some point. So it's better business for them. It's more streamlined, and it's more direct, which is really why this shift to cryptojacking over ransomware is taking hold. The question is it getting worse? Unfortunately, as we all know, as security professionals, things do get worse before they get better. So, a lot of this just comes down to malware. So people have adapted their malware to now use cryptojacking as the tool that kind of pays things off. So you can see here, a third of organizations have unknown malware infecting them, and that a lot of kind of legacy tools that people have in place, aren't necessarily solving the problem, and most people think that malware is getting worse despite kind of the proliferation of new technology. And the reasons, we kind of covered some of these. Economic motivation is the big one for people in regions maybe who might not have as much opportunity, but have access to computing power. There's kind of an incentive for folks to potentially turn to nefarious means to kind of support themselves, and I think the amount of knowledge required to launch one of these attacks goes down. The attacks get more sophisticated, and at the same time, it's easier for people to launch these things. You can go on the dark web, and there are toolkits available to launch your own cryptojacking campaign, and you don't need to be an expert hacker to do it. You can just buy a toolkit from an expert hacker, and it's a very sophisticated toolkit, much more sophisticated than most people could kind of create on their own. So it's a really nasty problem that kind of continues to get worse, and of course the world is more connected than ever. Which just means a lot more opportunity, more data hiding in different places, but also more endpoints, more servers, and more computers that can be co-opted to mine currency either knowingly or unknowingly. So kind of a big problem that isn't going anywhere, unfortunately. Good news is that there are steps we can take to defend ourselves. So, in order to kind of set that up, I thought I'd do a little bit of a deep dive into, how one of these cryptojacking campaigns typically goes. And there's a whole lot of different ways that these can be these can be orchestrated. But this is an example of how one might become infected. So we'll take a look at kind of a multi-vector attack. Typically what happens, we were joking yesterday that the guy in the hoodie is kind of the universal symbol of a hacker now, but, they'll typically do reconnaissance, look for a target where they can, access a lot of computers with computing power where they might be able to fly under the radar. They'll compromise one or more of those machines, through some kind of malware or virus, or kind of a direct infection. Once they get in, they'll try to move laterally. So if they infect a single computer in a lab, they'll try to move laterally in the network to get to servers, to get to other computers. And the name of the game here is volume. That the more computers you infect, the more computing power you have to mine currency. They'll install malware on the machines that they want to use. They will cover their tracks, which is really a key step here. That they will do things to make these make the malware run in the background. Make sure that it's disguised, hidden as more legitimate processes that are difficult to see, that might fool simple antivirus. And then it's really just a gravy train for the bad guys once they get all those nodes infected. Instead of kind of doing a quick smash and grab like in ransomware. It's really a slow drip. So basically, I infect a whole bunch of machines, and then over time, they slowly generate currency for me, and it's much, much harder to detect. So it's just more about flying under the radar and less about a big disruptive event. So we'll kind of take a look at how that might play out. In a typical environment, you'll kind of do reconnaissance on maybe staff, somebody with privileged access. So typically people would look at maybe an administrator of a computer lab or somebody in the IT function of a school. You'd compromise that person potentially by doing a spear phishing attack. So here's just an example, an email, your credentials are expiring, click here to update them. These things are very well disguised, they're easy to fall for. You might also get compromised by somebody browsing something in a lab and accidentally installing malware on a machine over the web, or potentially they might infect you through kind of a portal that might not be locked down, a student portal or something. There's a whole lot of ways that you can get compromised, and from there, they'll typically move laterally throughout the organization, gather credentials, and install malware everywhere they can. So on servers and on desktops and labs, cover their tracks, disguise things, and then it's off to the gravy train. They'll set things up to mine in the background, creating a whole bunch of disruption, slowing things down, and generally kind of increasing your power bills and making money and potentially exposing organizations. So it's particularly nefarious. And we'll kind of skip through some of the other details, and if you're kind of running public cloud or SaaS, may even spread to environments that you have outside of your school as well. So, that's kind of the, how these attacks get perpetuated. The good news is that there are a lot of steps you can take to protect yourself, to make sure that defenses are shored up. And really, it's kind of about following an end-to-end process that, it's not enough to detect, prevent, or recover. Really, you need to be able to do all three. So kind of at all steps, make sure that you can figure out if you have a problem, figure out when you've been compromised, prevent future compromises from getting in through a lot of different threat vectors. And then if you figure out that you are compromised, being able to recover. So it might be cleaning up machines, but a lot of times, just like with ransomware, backup is a great solution to actually just restore things to a known good state in a very simple fashion. So we'll kind of go through those in detail. Detection is really important, and as I said a few times, it's a lot harder to detect cryptojacking than it is to detect ransomware, because it's much less disruptive. You don't have the blinking red "send us Bitcoin" screen in your face. You've just got a lot of stuff running in the background, kind of making things annoying for your students and your staff. So there's a few ways to do detection. Number one is, email is still the most common threat vector for cryptojacking malware to get spread. So it's a good idea to take a look at your inbox. So look at kind of your mail traffic. Look if you've gotten infected attachments delivered to staff or student accounts. And typically there's a lot of good threat scanners on the market. We have one that is actually free to use, Barracuda, but basically if you're using Office 365 or Exchange on-premise, we can scan for advanced threats and identify where you might have had malware, including cryptojacking, get through your defenses to make it easier to clean things up. The other kind of very common threat vector is through web applications. So you might have portals or common website or a directory online, or even just your school website can often be vulnerable to attack and to people getting in that way. So it's a good idea to periodically, scan web applications for vulnerabilities to see, hey, do we have vulnerabilities? Do we have issues? And then, how can we remediate them? Do we either need to kind of update the code to close vulnerabilities or deploy a web application firewall to, kind of prevent people from exploiting and getting in through web applications? Prevention, kind of the second tier, and probably the one that I think you could argue is most important. I think they're all equally important, but we tend to focus a lot on prevention. It's worth an ounce of cure, or sorry, it's early. Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So preventing email-borne threats. Email is still the number one threat vector for delivery of cryptojacking and ransomware type attacks, although it gets in through other vectors as well. So, looking at kind of your email gateway and email defenses, do you have kind of a comprehensive solution to make sure that unwanted threats aren't getting in through email? Typo squatting, so, looking at links that might be coming in through email. So link protection is another thing to take a look at. A very common way that people, get people to click on bad links that contain cryptojacking malware might be by doing lookalike or typo squatted domains. So people will typically, there's some examples here, example.com, example.com. Might misspell, mix a few letters. If you're kind of busy and have a million things to do on your to-do list, like we all do these days, it can be difficult to spot that it's a different domain. So, having some help from a machine to automatically weed these out and say, yep, it's not actually example.com, Mr. Human, even though it might look like it to you, I'm not going to let you click this link, is a really good defense to have. Securing web applications. So we kind of talked about this one. We talked about scanning web applications. You may want to consider deploying a web app firewall to, essentially make sure that vulnerabilities within web applications can't be exploited. And it's not always just the application you've deployed yourself. It might be third-party toolkits. It was reported in the Equifax breach that they were using Adobe Struts, which is a very common framework that hadn't been updated in a while. There was a security flaw in Struts that somebody was able to kind of get in through the web application to compromise the rest of the environment. So kind of it's very difficult to keep up with all the third-party toolkits and keep all your web applications up to date and securely coded. So a web application firewall is a really convenient way to just kind of automatically remediate those machines and kind of do virtual patching of your web applications. And then finally, when people do get in, if you remember the middle kind of the attack chain, lateral movement, so people will get in and try to infect other machines, other computers in the lab, maybe common servers. So, making sure that you have firewalls deployed internally and that they're set up to detect lateral movement internally. Look for kind of funny traffic, things moving that shouldn't be, is just another way to kind of prevent, the spread of cryptojacking malware within your organization. And then, web is another huge threat vector. We hear this one from schools all the time as well, that particularly where you have, students and staff, doing a lot of web browsing, that, if you don't have the right kind of controls locked down on those machines, it's very easy for those machines to get infected by advanced malware. So, having some kind of web security solution, certainly an acceptable use policy in place, and just trying to lock down access to unknown and shady sites will cut down on the malware that comes into your school, including certainly including cryptojacking malware. And then finally, advanced threats. And these are, the other buzzword people use is zero-day threats, but we're seeing more and more people are creating highly customized versions of this malware, or they're kind of discovering a flaw that they can exploit, and they'll oftentimes sit on it and hold it until they can kind of get a massive campaign launched and then roll it all at once, and it kind of hits you unknown because you don't have virus signatures and virus definitions that know of this particular threat ahead of time. So having an advanced threat protection type solution in place where you can basically spot unknown malware as well as the known stuff greatly help against kind of the zero-day and advanced type of cryptojacking malware. And then finally, if you do get infected, because it's very difficult to do just pure prevention, being able to recover quickly is important. Backup is a great way to be able to do that. If you're taking regular backups and snapshots of machines, it becomes very easy to recover and go back to a known good state. Oftentimes malware is very difficult to clean off of a machine. It can be difficult to remove. You might detect a piece of it, but not another piece of it. Being able to kind of restore to a known good backup is just a really easy way to recover. And the bonus is this is also a great way to recover from ransomware. So, if you're worried about ransomware, and cryptojacking, it's really kind of a good solution to have in place to recover either way. I don't want to do too much of a sales pitch here, but just a little bit on Barracuda. Our mission is to kind of simplify IT, so on most of our solutions, we offer 30-day evaluations, simple pricing, and world-class support. With that, we kind of moved that pretty quickly. I just wanted to, talk about kind of moving forward, next steps. Jim, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about protecting their environment?
Basically, they could reply to the email that was sent, the invite, and if they want more information or a copy of the recording. And we can provide information, we can set up meetings and stuff like that.
Excellent. Good. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions that might be on the phone. You can submit them through the chat interface, and we'll answer as many as we get.
Anybody have any questions? Oh,
I got one in on chat here, just asking about detection. Are there ways to detect? Are there ways to detect where machines might be infected by malware? It can be difficult to detect these things sometimes. Yeah, it's a good question. So in addition to kind of the detection steps that we talked about, you also just want to do a few things. Number one, keep an eye on your desktops. A telltale sign is when people complain about machines being really, really slow. So in addition to kind of scanning machines, look for slowdowns in the labs or kind of on staff machines if they're running slowly. Frequently that's because there's a lot of stuff running in the background doing cryptojacking. And you also want to kind of look at your desktop management solution and your kind of endpoint management solutions. That's an area that Barracuda doesn't play in, but certainly take a look at any technology you might have deployed there as a third way to kind of detect an infection. Good question. Any other questions, either over kind of the chat interface or live on the phone? Okay, great. That was all I had. So Jim, I'll turn it back to you, but I just wanted to say thanks everybody for tuning in. And as Jim said, please get in touch with any other questions. We'll be happy to talk more.
Just wanted to reiterate to thank everybody for joining today, and feel free to ask for questions. We're available. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.